Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Macro Lounge podcast. I am, of course, your co-host, Chris Bold, joined by the sunning queen of sparkles, Rachel Mead, all the way from Tauranga. How are you this week, Rachel?
Too bad, very stressed, covered in sparkles. We're getting into the busy season.
Do we want to tell people why you're stressed? Or maybe they'll listen and have a guilt conscience, and suddenly you'll get this influx of the information that you were requesting.
So, at the moment, I have about 10 bikinis in the waiting pile that I cannot make a start on because I do not have people's measurements.
I would imagine in your line of work that would be quite difficult to get started without.
Just a little bit. So yeah, I do need people to send me a measurement. So if you've made an order and this is you, I think I've emailed 8 out of the 10, but yeah, please get your measurements in. I do need them to make a start on things. Again, some people I've told to do later, that is fine, but majority of you, please get your measurements in, because that's a good 2 weeks worth of work.
And if you don't send them in, you're all going to get the old IFBB conservative cut, and just going to have to shut up. I think that's fair and reasonable. That would be, as I said, it sounds like a them problem, not necessarily a you problem.
Yeah, I am also realizing that this year people are being a little bit last minute, so again, please get your orders in ASAP, because the closer we get to July, August, the busier it's going to get, and the less likely it is that you're going to get what you want. So if there's anything specific you want, you need to order it this month so I can order things in. I am doing a fabric order this week.
Yes, and for those of you who've not done this by next week's recording of the podcast, I will name and shame every single one of you. I have no shame. I'll call them out. It's not a problem, Rach. I'll be the bad guy for you. All right. In fact, I'll even record a message and we can send to them. Hi, you have failed to meet your requirements.
We can post it and tag them on Instagram.
Yeah, people are scared of me anyway. So I'll make a 30-second video for every single person, and we'll just tag them on Instagram and see how quickly you get content. Could you take that one down?
Please, people, get your measurements in, get your orders in as well. And if you haven't done a console yet, do that, because my availability is going to get very, very limited over the next month or so. So yes, we need to get that sorted.
We will rapidly stop seeing Rachel in person. It'll be a case of anybody seen Rachel? No, she's currently covered in sparkles and cat fur. And that
just being at shows, being at posing workshops. So yes, if you want anything during the weekend, it's going to get very, very difficult to book in at some point. So look at it.
Yes, late July is not probably going to look good for you. I must say. No, it's not going to look good at all. But at least this week, when we didn't have to go traveling around anywhere. So, and we seem to have ruffled a few feathers with last week's episode, and in particular the reel that we posted up when I went on a rant and you flipped people off. So that's okay. It was like, oh dear. Who knew that people were so sensitive about being told don't be a dick?
Which, we do need to get those t-shirts made. I reckon that will be a perfect, pump cover t-shirt in the gym.
Yep. I reckon that we get them done in an anime style, though. We get me doing the side eye, saying, oops, and you going, it'd be perfect. It'll be perfect. And just on the back, it'll say, don't be a dick. And, that's how we'll fund the podcast. We won't sell coffees. We'll sell abusive t-shirts. I'm okay with this.
We could even actually possibly personalize them with specific abusive messages if we need to.
Ooh, but you know who's going to be responsible for doing those abusive messages, and you will have to negotiate that.
I mean, I could potentially do some of them. If it's in one color, right. I can do it.
Okay, well, there you go. I'll pass that on. Somebody will be like, yeah. She will not be, she'll be in full agreement of that one. So, what else? Yes. Before we get started, we also wanted to give a quick shout out to Lou Mullen, and Ash Mullen, of course, both competing over in the US. Lou did the fit model in...
Was it Miami? I think it was Miami.
Was it Miami?
Oh, yep. That's a good question.
Yep.
The background of that show was really cool, though, by the way.
Yeah, no.
It was the pink and blue, and then because she chose to wear her pink suit, and it just popped against the blue. It looked so cool. So yes, congratulations to Lou on her pro debut, first ever pro showing, and I think she does have one more show, I think next week by the time this podcast comes out.
Yeah, and Ash, it was his second show on this tour, and I think he was just outside the top 10 in the over 35 pro. Ash's been around for... It's hard to think that Ash actually qualifies for the Masters category. I'd still think of him as being this 18-year-old punk who showed up with the pretend forward Hardy haircut, the Dragon Ball Z stuff. Obviously he was watching far too many forward videos back in the day. So yeah, it's the fact that he's competing in the Masters category. It makes me feel really old.
I'm not saying anything.
Say it. No. yeah, I think you should just keep
I
that
keep my
to
mouth
yourself.
shut.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Harassment.
no, it is not harassment. It is stating a fact, which I never stated, by the way. I kept my mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
So, today, what are we talking about, Chris?
Well, interesting enough, and watching and reading the little comments that over the last couple of weeks with the shows that have started coming up, we thought we'd go on about FOMO, or the fear of missing out. And you've seen so many people now that are just like, the obviously one is that they're having FOMO because they haven't started competing yet, or they're competing later in the year, or they're taking the year off. But it's a really interesting subject to look at because I think it covers a lot more. I think a lot of people, when they think about bodybuilding and FOMO, they think about, oh, I'm not on stage, I don't have this year's bikini, I'm doing this and the other thing. But I reckon it goes a lot more deeper than that because, personally, I reckon FOMO has probably cost more physiques than a bad training program. Having that FOMO, where, you're missing it, you think you're missing out on that stage time, or you're missing out on being up there. I reckon that can just destroy the physique because it's like, you're like, oh no, my friend's competing, so I've got to compete. And the reality is like, well, that wasn't the plan. So let's just hold off a little bit.
No, it does, yeah. Sometimes it can motivate you more if you're about to compete. But yes, definitely sometimes if you choose to compete because of FOMO, sometimes that's going to be a little bit detrimental. Although, I'm going to be honest, it can sometimes be a little bit of a good thing because my whole season last year was basically a FOMO season. I was not supposed to compete last year.
That year, Rachel, we're not talking about 2025. There's a reason I have no hair. And 2025 has a lot to do with that.
I thought 2024 was worse.
It's debatable.
So sometimes, occasionally, it's needed because, I mean, for me, it was the first year that they had Swimsuit Pro, and for me, I was like, well, I can't miss the first year of Swimsuit Pro.
Yeah, it's pretty much. Yeah, you were like, well, I was like sitting there going, well, that took exactly 45 seconds after that post was put up before I got that message. Right.
So occasionally it can, just circumstances, but if it's just because your friend is competing, although again, I am still waiting for the day that I can step back on stage with Talia. It's only been 6 years.
Well, I think we should discuss that when she gets back from Vietnam because, maybe we need to rescue the chicken as enough inspiration for her. Or we could rescue the chicken, hold the chicken hostage, and then use that as a bargaining chip.
That's true. Make her come back with me next year.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even just have to be like FOMO from competing. It can actually also be the other way around. It can be FOMO from not competing.
Yeah.
So, depends on what circle.
It depends on what circle. It depends on what path you're currently on. But generally, like right now, we're at that part. I think where suddenly everybody's wants to prep because they're seeing. How many videos have you seen? Road to Nationals, Road to Worlds, because that's coming up. What was that?
2
weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah. Prep starts now and locked in. And you're like, if I see in the favorite one, coming for my pro card, it's like, dude, you're a novice. Shut the fuck up. But how many of those have we just seen in the last 2 weeks? These athletes are, suddenly, the athlete was happily building away 2 weeks ago. And then now I get this message, hey coach, can I prep for you?
This is true. I mean, like, you can't always blame people because, especially when you go to the show, like you smell the tan, you see the people all bedazzled, and honestly, it's the tan for me. The tan is like a key part of competing. The smell of tan and just even the feeling of it. It's just like stage time, turning on the competitive mode.
We could get that in a little spritzer for you, just like like an air freshener, just a little protein. That could work.
Good, or I could actually even just put on some tan before going on to the show. I probably need it, to be honest. But it's you get to the show, you see everyone getting up there, and a lot of the time you just like, I wish I was up there with everyone. And a lot of the time you also wonder, it's the what if. I think that makes it worse when you wonder, okay, what if I was there? What could I have placed well? Where would I have stacked?
Or if you're standing there, if you're sitting there watching the show and you literally think, well, I could have beaten her or him, it's, that gets those triggers going.
Yeah, and especially when you see someone who, say you are one of those people who are gunning for their pro card, you've been in the top 3-ish for the last year or so, maybe a couple of years, some people 5+ years, and then you see one of those other people get their pro card that you've been neck and neck with the whole time, a lot of time, again, you wonder what if. But if you compete every single season back to back, a lot of the time you will not have enough time to grow and put on the size you need.
And I think that's the thing about having FOMO. It's like, and that's where the relationship with your coach goes. Like one of the teammates that we have, they were like, I want to do this show. And then I had to sit down and explain to them, I said, okay, let's just math this out. If you were to start prepping now, let's call it 20 weeks, and you have been gaining muscle at X number of grams per week. So we're going to multiply that by 20 and say this is how many grams of muscle that you would have potentially gained in this growth phase. And then we're going to take the amount of muscle that you will probably lose based on what we know has happened in the past with you. And so we're going to say that you will lose X number of kilos. So the net number of that is a big number of muscle mass that you will have lost. Is that metal worth sacrificing what the physique that you would have bought next year to the stage? And then it's just basic math, and you watch them go, okay, I see your point. Okay, can we go back to this now? But yeah, I mean, that's whole prep envy thing, isn't it? It's really, as you said, when you see that one athlete that you've been neck and neck with for a couple of years or a couple of shows, and then suddenly it's their show. They timed it right. Whatever they may have improved their conditioning or their overall presentation, but it goes a lot deeper than just missing out on prep. It's like, I read something the other day that the research has shown that FOMO is strongest when we compare ourselves to people who are similar to us, not celebrities, not world champions, people in your immediate social circle. Like, you don't get FOMO from seeing Laura Lee on stage. You get FOMO from seeing Talia's decided to compete, and then you're like, hang on, what the? Do you know what I mean? She's probably saying, why are they always picking on me?
She's fun to pick on.
I know. We like to pick on Talia because she fights back. It's great.
No, it is worse when it is someone you've been competing with for a while. But, I mean, again, it comes back to sometimes you just have to math out the timing, and if the timings are right for you. So, for example, last year, obviously the timing was right, and it wasn't just a FOMO decision. It wasn't just like we did justify it of actually the chances of taking the pro card, we have a pretty good chance of at least being in the vicinity. So it was a justified decision, not just based on FOMO. The timing was also right. Could I benefit from an off season? Yes, I could have. And could I have come back this year and achieved a similar result? Yeah, probably. But again, you've just got to work out the timing and how that works for you.
Yeah, and it's like, everybody wants the prep body, right? Nobody wants the off season body.
I want the off season.
Yeah.
See, this is actually how you know you're maturing in bodybuilding, okay? You get to the first 2 preps, maybe you're like, yeah, I love how I look like 4 weeks out. It's like 2 to 4 weeks post show, maybe, if you've been chill in your post show feeds. And you're like, yes, this is great. I'm lean, I'm shredded, I've got abs. It's awesome, I look great. But then as you go on,
Rachel and you're not allowed abs.
That too. But as you move on, you get to a point where you actually prefer how you look in the off season. Because you're like, yes, I look big, I look jacked. Yeah, and then, you just also, associate being that lean with how kind of sucky that point of prep can be.
Yeah.
It's a scary one.
It's interesting when you look back on prep, like not stage photos, but prep photos, and then you look at it and go, man, I looked ill.
Yeah.
So you don't often, well, you shouldn't. I mean, there is always the internet trolls out there who will make, like they did about one of our team members the other day. They were like, yeah, she was just in the middle of a growth season, and she made some comment about she was feeling a little bit insecure in herself. And this dickhead literally said that she was fat and she shouldn't, be holding. She has 11.27% body fat. Yeah, that's off season. I'm like, but generally, when you look back on those photos during prep, and then you suddenly realize, like, you don't have the curves, you don't have the femininity is not necessarily there, and you don't notice it when you're knee deep in prep. You suddenly realize
it's because all you're looking at in prep is abs and tie-ins. That's about it. Maybe shoulder caps.
Yeah,
that's about it.
And then you suddenly, when you look back on the pictures, and you realize that you've got the jawline of Skeletor, and your clavicles are sticking up.
I do quite like having a good jawline.
Your jawline is pretty much fine 365 days a year, actually.
But I have a confession to make.
Oh God, here we go.
I lost a kg. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to have a moment here by myself so I don't say anything that'll get me in trouble.
I had takeaways 3 times this week. I don't know how.
Very disappointed.
And I apologize for those of you in prep. I actually was going to put a group message to our group chat and talk about how much I'm enjoying having chocolate right now. I've got a block of salted caramel, like dark chocolate, and I'm like, This is
The language that would be directed at you by one or two in particular that I can think of.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I was gonna title it with, if you are in prep and you like a bit of sugar, yeah, do not read this. Just skip straight past. Just delete the message straight away without reading it. But anyway, no, it does. A lot of people do start to get like that FOMO. I mean, even though you're enjoying the good food, sometimes you start to see, like, you're seeing people progress, you're seeing them put their progress photos up, you're seeing them post their cardio of like, yes, the grind. And bodybuilding is often a little bit cultish, and we like to follow suit.
A little?
Just a bit. So we like to be like, oh, I wish I was doing that too, like I miss the grind. You tell yourself that, you don't, but you are telling yourself that in your brain.
Until you're like 4 weeks out and go, why? I voluntarily did this. And yes, you did.
Can you tell me and Chris are not in a stage of FOMO right now?
No, we're like, good for you.
It was actually really nice. Like, usually I go to a show and I do get that. This show, I was like, I love being in the audience right now. I'm really happy to not be up there this season. I'm just living my life. It's great. Mm-hmm. So that's also when you know you are actually in a very good zone to take an off season. If you are sitting in the audience and you're like, you know what? I'm happy here. Don't even pretend to feel a FOMO. Don't tell yourself you should feel FOMO, because you shouldn't. Grow.
Yeah. It's when people turn around and say, don't you wish you were up there, Rach? You could, you would be doing so well on the show. You're like, no, actually, let them do it. It's like, I'm perfectly happy where I am. Thank you. I mean, the irony is that people are afraid of missing out on is often the thing that stops them from becoming better. It's like I frequently say to any of the athletes that I work with, would you rather miss one season or spend 5 years looking exactly the same? And I've seen that happen with athletes from New Zealand and around the world where they have been world class. They've been elite. Yet every year that you see them, they look exactly the same. And that's because they're constantly having to compete, whether it's because they're a competitive person by nature or because they think that they don't want to get behind somebody else. So it's, I think you have to ask yourself, what is your ultimate goal? Some people just love competing, right? So the FOMO is that I need the sparkles, I need that spray tan.
I'm not gonna lie, I am kind of tempted to just enter runway, just to have fun with it.
I can just spray you with spray tan, Rich, if you want.
I mean, I have tan.
Yeah, but that's not. It doesn't have the same.
It's also the adrenaline of. It's the adrenaline of being on stage. Like it is a bit of a high. It's a bit of a rush, and then again, in bodybuilding, it's not like every other sport where you can do many events throughout the year. Like, I mean, when I was swimming, we were doing at least one per month. Sometimes it was 2 per month. So that's like every second week you're competing. In bodybuilding, we can't really do that. And also, like, sometimes people compete once a year, especially as you move up the levels, you compete less and less. If you're a pro, sometimes you might not even have a pro show in your country. So it can get very hard to actually find a time to compete. And so those times are very condensed. So when you're taking an off season, it's even longer. And it just gives you a very big gap. And for people who just really enjoy being on stage and enjoy just, the feeling of competing, it can be quite hard to take those off seasons just because you kind of almost can forget what you're training for, I feel. Like, because that gap is so long, you're kind of like, where am I going with this? Because you don't have that refresher every year.
Yeah, when you don't have that quantifiable time. Like, I frequently say, like, generally most of the girls that I work with, there's one of two things or three things that they're aiming for, and all three of them have a specific date in mind. It's generally they've got a comp, they've got a photo shoot, or they're getting married.
I was about to say that, or it's a wedding.
It's generally one of those three, and oddly enough, they're all the same thing because we know the date.
That's true.
And it's like, so what do we need to present? But when you don't have that line in the sand that says, I must be ready by then, that's when you've got to work with your team to sort of say, okay, how are we going to set goals? How are we going to know that we've achieved them? And it can't just be a scale weight thing, because particularly if you're dealing with like swimsuit, bikini, fitness model, fit model, sports model, the smaller, less muscular of the female classes, you can't say, well, I need to, gain as much muscle mass as possible. So, if you're gaining 200 grams a month, which is not insubstantial for some of those smaller classes, it's really hard to stay motivated by that because those scales aren't moving much. And, you're doing all the work, you're grinding it out in the gym, and, you're doing all the you're eating all the meals and you think, oh my God, I'm eating for a small country here. But you're only seeing that little bit at a time. So you have to have, that's when I think it's really, really important to set yourself some SMART goals, going back to like my corporate days, something that is specific, something that is actually measurable, that is attainable, it's relevant, or some would say realistic, and it's timely. And so it's harder to do that when you don't have that goal being, I'm going to do ICN South Islands, or I'm going to do NZIFBB South Islands, when you don't have that sort of really confined date. And that's why frequently I say, if you're going to take an extended growth season, is well in advance, work out how you're going to measure your success so that you know that you can tick those off and you can celebrate those victories. And that shouldn't be something that's based around the great social media lie, which is, Instagram has turned bodybuilding into a spectator sport. People spend more time watching bodybuilding than actually doing bodybuilding. And I think a lot of, you have to think about social media, it's showing the stage photos, it's showing the trophies, it's showing the pro cards, the photo shoots, the cheat meals. And that's when people start to get that, that spectator side of like, when they get really integrated into it. But it's not showing the debt that athletes racking up, the fatigue, the relationship strain, the food obsession, the failed preps, the hormonal issues, all of the negative stuff. It's just showing the positive stuff. So people are they're spinning their wheels again to get there. Oh, I want to be up there. I want to be up there. I want to be up there. And it's like, well, get up there when you're ready.
I think also it's important to have something outside of bodybuilding as well, because I think people do get very wrapped up in bodybuilding being their entire life, their entire personality, which is fine. But if you are dramatically feeling FOMO and you constantly have to compete when you know that your body needs a break, because again, prep is not always entirely healthy. It's actually usually not.
Usually not.
90% of the time. So your body does need a break occasionally. Sometimes your body is like, no, we're done for this year. That's it. So you do need to take breaks. It's not good for you to constantly be fluctuating that much on the scale. So yeah, it's also like a life thing. So when you do need those breaks and if you are feeling a lot of FOMO, it can help to just change tracks a little bit, have something else in your personality, in your life outside of bodybuilding. Because yes, it can be very, very consuming and that can be a good thing for some people. But if it's making you want to constantly prep, constantly be stage lean, then it's no longer healthy. Could be good to find something to, I guess, distract you from that in the off season. So you're still working to build the muscle in your off season, but you have something else to do your hyperfixation on so that you're not as FOMO.
I think it's why you're seeing, you're starting to see more, particularly bikini, etc., participating in powerlifting of all things.
Yes.
You're starting to see more girls say it's a challenge where they can still eat, they can still grow. It's a more specific type of training, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's like, in fact, I wholeheartedly support it, because if you don't have that base level strength, you're not going to be able to survive through, a solid growth season of hypertrophy. But it gives you something else to focus on, and it certainly, gets you to focus on something other than what's going on social media. I mean, the studies consistently showing there's a link between increased social media use, greater FOMO, increased comparison, anxiety, low life satisfaction, and greater body dissatisfaction. So the biggest lie that social media is telling you is that everybody is progressing faster than you. And that's not true. You need to take those breaks. You need to take that time. And as Ray said, it's like, to have a bit more going on. And the other thing is, if you don't take the breaks, you're not going to change. You're just going to consistently show up in the same. And the funny thing is, I frequently used to say, when an athlete walked off stage, I pretty much, it was like studying for an exam. I would cram it in while you were there. You'd have my utmost attention. The minute you walked off stage, and if you came up to me and said, I was the girl in the pink bikini, I'd go, there was a girl in a pink bikini?
Doesn't help that you're colorblind.
I can tell pink. Damn it. That's why I picked pink. Red and green I have problems with. That's why I don't do wellness. Leave me alone. But the funny thing is, you do remember those athletes that consistently show up year after year after year. And if they keep showing up looking the same, you're like, Rach looks great, but she looks the same as she did last year. And even if you look great, and you should place very highly, if you haven't shown progression, judges are human. They're going to remember that you still look the same. And they're going to reward that somebody who Adriana's a classic example. We were talking last week. Last year, you could see this raw potential. I mean, she's beautiful. She's got a beautiful silhouette. And I didn't actually fully appreciate what Rachel was talking about last week because Rachel was fangirling. And I went back and I looked at some photos that we found of her from last year. And I was
you realised
wow,
I was actually not fangirling, and I was actually just stating facts.
Well, there was a little bit of fangirling going on, to be fair. But it was, when you looked at it, it was like, you could clearly see the improvement. So that's the thing, if you year after year after year, which the federations want you to do, because let's face facts, that's how they make money, and there's only so many bodybuilders around. If you just keep coming back looking like the same good version that you did last year, then they're really going to look at that other athlete who's definitely improved, who like, wow, where did she come from? She has really stepped up her game. So sometimes you've just got to listen to it.
It's important to remember as well that when you're beginning, like, you are going to progress a lot faster. So competing the first 2 or 3 seasons in a row probably isn't too much of a big deal. Yeah. As you go on, it's going to be harder to build more muscle. You build less muscle each year. And then if you think about it, if you do a prep, let's say these days around 4 months, I think is a bit more standard than 3 months. Sometimes it's even 5. Let's say 4 months for now that you are prepping. So you are not building muscle in that time. And then you've got 3 months of reversing. That's already 7 months of the year. And so that only leaves you with 5 months of growth, which is not a huge amount of time.
No, and you're not going to put on that much in 5 months unless you are fully jacking up. And particularly when you start talking of the non-enhanced athletes and the federations where they are doing the drug testing, it's very, very difficult to make big moves in a short period of time.
Pause.
Delivery.
I need to do a signature.
They were early. Okay.
That's a different one.
Oh, okay. I feel like and scene. Where's the all right, where were we? We did.
Growing. Amount of time.
Yeah. It takes time. And as you said, you get a law of diminishing returns, right? The longer you train and the longer you compete, the less rapid your progression is going to be, or the more dramatic the steps you have to take to make the progression. And it can be really, really hard, particularly in the more smaller feminine classes. You can't put on, well, you can, and it really ticks me off when girls do it, but there is no point putting on 5 to 10 kilos in your growth season if of that 5 to 10 kilos, 8 of it's fat, and then you're just looking fluffy. And it's like, yeah, but now you've got to burn that off. So all you're doing is making your prep longer, which means you have less time to grow, which means you have less time to improve. So sometimes you've got to listen to that little voice in your head that's, the FOMO side that's going, I want. And you just literally have to say, shut the F up.
Little disclaimer here for Chris, who said 10 kg. For a tall person, that's actually not that much.
Yeah, but you're just making life hard for yourself. 10 kg. I mean, I've seen girls do, the most I've seen was 29 kilos.
That's a lot.
During prep. Yeah, and that was for an Olympian level athlete. And I was like,
that's quite a bit.
Yeah. And considering as on stage she was 52.
Yeah. I mean, for me, 10 kgs I feel is like not too bad as a
10 kgs in a 20-week prep for you, it's fine. Yeah,
exactly. So just a little disclaimer out there, just in case anyone's hearing that and thinking, I need to not put on any weight at all. No, we do put on weight in off season. We do put on weight.
You have to. But do it smartly so that the weight that you put on is at least the majority of it's coming from muscle.
Yes. That amount is also going to be different for everyone. So some people need more than others. So like your body will kind of tell you, and you usually can see it. Or if you aren't that great at looking at yourself objectively, your coach should be able to see it. So I just needed to do that quick disclaimer there. But you don't want to sacrifice putting on muscle for just competing for the sake of competing. When you are feeling that FOMO, just think, what is the actual reason there that you feel like you should be on stage? Is it worth sacrificing your growth for that? Like, what is your actual goal?
Yeah, and I think we mentioned earlier, taking FOMO away from the FOMO from competing. There is FOMO from relationships, life, and missing stuff. Because, not everything matters equally, but some things absolutely do. But it's like, you have to think about what stage in life you're at. Like, Rach this year, next year coming up, there's a much more important event going on than, getting up on the pro stage. And frankly, if she was to tell me that she wanted to go through prep for their wedding, and I was saying, okay, sure, you're going to be sitting at the head table there, with a Tupperware container, and I'm pretty sure your in-laws are not going to appreciate it.
No.
I would be looking at it sideways going, yeah, it would be like, this is not a good way to start the life. You get FOMO around the fact that you're going to miss those things. I mean, athletes often skip, when you're in prep, you're skipping social dinners, nights out, family events, weddings, holidays, birthdays. That can be a really real FOMO. So you have to look at what you've got planned coming up in that year, whether it's like you've planned, and a lot of people do an OE experience when they're in their early 20s, and you've been competing, and suddenly it's like, I'm going to go and travel Europe for a year. Well, you're probably going to put prep on the back burner when you're doing that, because it's kind of hard to do. I don't think anyone lies on their deathbed wishing that they intended one more show, as opposed to, maybe I should have skipped that show and done that 1 year traveling around Europe. So you need to look at what you've got coming up, and that FOMO is going to be more long lasting and probably life affecting than the fact that you missed a regional and potentially a national show.
So something that could be good to do there is to write 2 lists of your goals. Just have one that's just life goals. So this is kind of what I want to achieve in life. This is more or less when I would like to achieve it. Obviously, things happen, but just as an outline. So potentially, for me, I would have I've got wedding on there for next year, all those kind of things. That's the only thing on there right now. You might have business goals. I don't know. You might have travel goals. So you might say, okay, well, I know that I want to go to this country more or less maybe this year. So you can write those ones down and then have your competing goal and think, okay, so where does that fit into this timeline? Because again, life is more important for 99.9% of people, because most of us, again, are not at that elite level where we're making money off it and it is our living. So compare the 2 lists and think, okay, does my competing goal, where does that slot into my life goals? Because you don't want your life goals, they should come first. Again, when you're old and decrepit, you're probably not going to think, oh, I should have just done that 2025 season instead of the 2026 season. The stage will still be there. And you can be awesome like some of our amazing masters, like, for example, Kara Chan and Charlie, and be competing in forever. Or Ali G, she's another one of my inspirations. I am fully planning on being I'm planning on being a really awesome grandma up on stage and just embarrassing all my grandchildren. Yeah, that's one of my life goals.
Actually, this is something I have absolutely no trouble picturing at all. I'm just like, that seems, that's good.
So, Chris, you have to live to 100.
Jeez. Okay. All right. I better get on.
I told Val this actually the other week.
Yes, so she did pass it on. But the other thing is, you can frequently combine these things. Like, Fiona's a classic example of this. She likes to travel. It's one of her things, right? But she loves to compete. So with Fiona, we look for an opportunity she can do both. So she will travel, like she's doing, where is she not going this year? But, she's doing Milan. So, she's traveling to Italy. She's going to do some time around the comp. Then she's going to have some downtime. She's going to come back to New Zealand. And then she's going to go over and she's going to do 2-3 shows and master shows in South America. So it gives her an opportunity to explore these different countries. But it's not the exclusive reason for why she's traveling. It just gives her it's almost like, I reckon she justifies the travel by saying there's a comp. She just doesn't think I figured that part out yet.
I'll actually never understand the people who just show up for a competition and then just come straight home. I'm like,
well,
take a week.
Chantal.
You're
Chantal went
there.
to New York. Yeah, Chantal went all the way to New York, and I think she was back on the Sunday. I was like, that's a long way to fly.
I hate long flights. I hate long flights.
Yeah, it's the one problem with living in New Zealand. It's like, it's a long way to go anywhere. But Natalia's the same example. Like, next year, she wants to go home and see her family. She's from Brazil. So, we're timing that trip around. There happens to be a couple of big shows coming up, and we're going to time it around there. So she has a goal to compete. And she also has some, family stuff that she wants to do. So you can frequently combine the two. But you shouldn't be terrified about missing out on an event. Like, some of these things only ever happen once. You often don't get a second crack at something. And to miss it because of a competition, that's something that you potentially will regret long term. I have done that myself. I missed my brother's wedding, and purely because I was focused on other things around the sport, and I've never got that time back. That's 25 years. And trust me, 25 years later, my brother still reminds me about it. Yep, I'm like, dude, are we ever going to let? He's like, nope. I'm like, shit.
Also, generally, things like weddings are probably, wedding as a general rule is it's a wedding. It's, in theory, only going to happen once.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it in theory.
In theory.
Present company excluded. I'll get that one in before you had a chance.
You got third time lucky, but
Exactly.
again, 3 times isn't that many. Like, in the grand scheme of your life, 3 times isn't that many occasions. It is a decent amount of weddings, but occasions and days. Not like birthdays, for example, yeah, you can bring, most of the time, you can probably bring a Tupperware, because that does kind of happen every year, but wedding doesn't happen every year, for most people at least.
Those ones are pretty hard to talk your way out of, but again, it's like, the FOMO should be around potentially missing that as a special event, missing a special birthday or a special anniversary or all of those sort of things, When you don't get the opportunity to be part of that from a human perspective because it doesn't fit your macros or it doesn't fit where you are in your particular training cycle, that's probably something you should have with a discussion you should have with your team and say, hey, we need to back off around these timeframes because of X, Y, and Z. And then, as you said, Rach, there's always going to be another show. They do pop up quite frequently.
They're not going to just completely cancel all bodybuilding. Like, I'd be very surprised if bodybuilding just got banned worldwide from every federation. That'd be pretty drastic. It'd be pretty unlikely.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there'll be somebody out there doing something somewhere.
I mean, like, things did look pretty grim during COVID for a bit, but you knew that we were eventually going to come out of that. So unless the apocalypse happens, which again is quite dramatic, the shows are always going to be there. There's always going to be the stage. But again, like we say, like, it's balancing, will you get this opportunity again on either side? So some shows, for example, you might not get the opportunity again. So say you qualify for the Olympia, or like your team is traveling to a certain event and it's a team experience. It's more of an experience trip. You're staying as a team and it's like a whole event. That's a little bit different from just getting up on stage just for any random show. So it's balancing which is not going to happen again.
I think you frequently need to discuss with yourself something like, would you rather?
Yeah.
Would you rather miss one show, or would you rather miss a special time? And
also, discuss with your significant other.
Yes. That's very important. My wife and I frequently have that, and we were just having this discussion earlier when we were looking at booking flight tickets around to all these different shows we've got to go up and down the country. And I'm like, hey babe, do you want to go to X? And she's like, hell no.
I think I know which one she doesn't want to come to.
Yeah, I won't name it in case somebody says, what's wrong with that city? I'll be like, well, But yeah, you discuss those things, plan them out, and yeah, probably a little bit less focus on what's going on in the world of social media and more about what's going on around in your immediate world, because there's a lot of people in your life that will not understand why you are choosing some sparkly bikini and some spray tan over your sister's wedding.
I'm not going to lie, I don't really know how to talk to people who aren't into bodybuilding and fitness these days.
True.
Like, when we went to the Philippines, like, I was looking up, like, meeting all these new people, like, friends of the bride and groom, and I'm, like, talking to them, and I'm like, your life, like, I don't understand it.
You're like,
they're like, oh, we should catch up when we get back to New Zealand, and I'm like, I don't know what we would do.
Yeah, it's like, we want to go to the gym?
Yeah, it's like, I like you, but, like, I really just don't know what we would do. Like, do you want to go cook some chicken? Like,
who was I talking about the other day? One of the girls, and she was like, I just said, you need to get out more, because it was like she came back, obviously she'd been deep in prep, and then she said to me one of the things that she missed was she thought the food at IKEA was really good and Costco hot dogs. I was like, girl, you need to get out more, because trust me, there's at the global scale of things. Like one of the ICN girls, Stephanie, who's over in Canada, who's Canadian at the moment, and her first story she posted on day one was, and it showed the fact that I've obviously spent too much time in that part of the world, was a photo of a coffee bar, which I knew the name of, called Tim Hortons, which is like the Canadian Starbucks, and just a screenshot of the menu. And I said, one, how the hell did you hit both that and Tim Hortons and Costco in the space of an hour? And she's like, yeah. And she thought that was great. I was like, yeah. If that's what you've missed about Canada.
Priorities.
Yep. Slice of pizza and a coffee.
We've got to balance it. It's like, even last season, like, I will admit, I did skip a few workouts and postponed some cardios due to having a kitten. And because he was very cuddly back then. And I am very, very glad I did that, because he now doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, but so should have got him the year before, and then we could have done, it would have made prep so much easier, because you'd have been like, he doesn't love me anymore, I'm going to go to the gym.
I mean, I prepped the year before, so.
That's true.
Year after, I think you mean.
Yeah.
But no, so I mean, some of those things, like, you don't get that time back. So people with kids, is probably a bit of a closer analogy. You don't get that time back. Like, they only grow up once. Like, they're only a baby once. So same with my kitten. He's only a baby once, and he's grown up so fast. He's a year old now. Shame on you all for not knowing his birthday was last week. But no,
I pronounced his name right last week, so that was a plus.
It's a plus. But yeah, again, you don't get that time back, so it's important to use it.
You did say last week that he was technically 1 week left as a kitten, so that would make this week his birthday.
His birthday was on the 29th, so yes, it was a couple of days ago.
Okay, we'll ask Valerie to put a little happy birthday, and we'll put a little kitten thing on the screen. But yeah, you don't get those things back. I mean, we've all done it, right? I mean, if we were to have a guilty confession time. Okay, Rach.
Okay, no. I know at least one person on the team who probably has never done it.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always one.
Yeah, there's always one. We won't name and shame them.
Majority of people,
though. I mean, what's the biggest bodybuilding decision you've ever made, Rachel, that was made because of FOMO?
Oh, because of FOMO. Competing last year. Maybe Worlds. That was a pretty big one because I was... let's just say dead broke at that point. My bank account was like in the single digits, or double digits, I should say. It was not good. So yes, that was a pretty big one because it cost me about $5,000 to go, and it was something that I was like, well, I feel like I need to do it. But I mean, I don't regret going. I don't regret going to that one because I mean now it's in Dubai, so I probably will not go again if it stays in Dubai because that's a long way.
It's also a hellishly expensive place to visit, so...
Yeah. So again, it comes down to justifying, does the cost, will you regret it later, I think is probably the biggest one. So I probably didn't need to go. Probably could have. I mean, I actually did get a lot of FOMO from not being at our team event that I was in Australia for. That was major FOMO. I was so upset.
It was like, maybe we should block Rachel for this one.
I was so sad. I was all by myself in Australia, and then you guys were all having fun in photo shoots without me. That one, yeah. I got some reverse FOMO. I do promise you
we will do that this year.
I won't be competing though.
That's all right. Even for people who are not competing, we will do the whole setup this year. I've already started working on it, and making sure that everybody's involved.
All right. Well, what about you? What's your biggest FOMO decision that you've made?
I probably made, actually, probably the stupidest decision that I've made in bodybuilding from a FOMO perspective was when Valerie and I got married, she walked down the aisle to Brad Paisley's song Then, and which was quite funny because she hated country music, and I just played it as a song. And I said, this is what I think you should do. And I had FOMO of, it was Nationals one year in New Zealand, 3 years ago, I think, 3 years ago. And I had FOMO of missing out on judging Nationals and the Pro-Am. And I chose doing the Pro-Am over taking my wife to see Brad Paisley play at Spark Arena.
We know that was not a good decision.
We know this now, with the benefit of hindsight. And but yeah, I was so worried what people would think if I didn't, or more to the point, if I left Nationals. I mean, the reality is, could have done Nationals, gone straight to the show. Didn't. I was more worried about what other people would think because I did not put something first, that I forgot to put the person I should have put first. And yeah, that was just dumb.
I would say
watching this and go, yes, it was.
Yeah, you're never going to hear the end of it.
Nope.
I just think it's so funny because I feel like there's so many other podcasts and coaches and stuff out there that would tell you the opposite and be like, lock in, go hard. And then there's us and we're like, live your life.
Live your life, yeah. Which is why we get in so much trouble because we're like, yeah, we love everybody. Let's all get around.
I mean, some people want that lock in. You go for that. But again, it's thinking, is that your top priority? It is life decisions. You can't, well, I mean, you can if you really want to, but you probably shouldn't just make bodybuilding your entire life when one day it's probably going to end. It's the same with any athlete. You look at even the All Blacks, once they hit 35, 40, then what? If you're Dan Carter, you can go into commercials. Great. You're sus for life. But if you're not Dan Carter, now what?
So what you're saying, if you're not good looking, you're screwed.
Yes. No. It's either good looking or smarts. Or the other option is, okay, there's two options. Inheritance or marry rich.
These are both viable decisions, viable options that could be considered. But yeah, there's not many people who get to the end of their bodybuilding career and go, I mean, I think you'd even find athletes like even Phil Heath now, who's been retired, 10 years? Do you think he's sitting there looking at the Olympia going, I wish I'd give it one more crack? He's like, no, I did my time. I had fun with it, and I was arguably the greatest bodybuilder of all time. But I've moved on. I, I reckon maybe FOMO isn't the fear of missing out in this sport. I think it's more about the fear of being left behind.
That's true. Because, I mean, it's not like some other sports where, like, for example, swimming, running, you've got a set time. You know for a fact, okay, yeah, my personal best is faster than this person. Like, I could have beat them. I know that. That's fine. Because I know it. Whereas bodybuilding is so much more subjective. You just never know what's going to happen. And I think that, that might have a little bit more effect on the what if I get on stage? What would happen?
Yeah.
And then, that getting left behind because, everyone's results are going to be so variable every single time. You never know.
You never know. And the reality is everybody's on a different timeline. There are athletes that, Brenda's a classic example from ICN, she competed in the late 80s, early 90s, took time off. 20 years later, came back, started competing again, won a pro card,
Started a federation.
That's the whole thing is like everybody's on a different timeline. Some people, it's about, winning their pro card in their first year competing. And it's, being a pro, getting that pro status and saying, oh, look at me, I'm an XYZ pro. And it doesn't matter what federation. I sent Rach, we often send each other stupid ass reels. But that one of the guy who'd won pro cards in multiple divisions. And I thought he rightfully said, it doesn't matter what federation that you win a pro card in. That pro card is a status symbol that you have done. In that federation, you achieved the ultimate one. So whether it's in ICN, whether it's in the IFBB, whether it's in PCA or anything like that, you're on a different timeline than anybody else. And that timeline in bodybuilding, that's the cool thing about it, never really stops because you can get back on at any time. You can get back on that journey, back on that timeline. We've talked recently about athletes like Charlie Choi and Karen Chan, athletes that are in their 60s and 70s that look phenomenal. Karen's a classic example, or Marina Hill, in their 50s and whooping younger athletes' butts. And it's like there is always... Yeah. Yep, that'll be Rachel. I did actually, a reel came up the other day and I forgot to send it to you. It was like, badass grandma. I was like, yeah, that's Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to have FOMO about the stage because the stage is always going to be there. It's just, your timeline might be slightly different for a while. And that's okay. That's the thing about the sport, right? It's always going to be there and you can always lift weights until you can't.
Yeah, you basically should lift weights forever. So, to summarize and start wrapping things up, but basically balance your FOMO versus your goals and your life, what life stage you're at and what events you have in your life. Is missing out on this event, can you do it again? Is it possible? That's the biggest balance there when you're thinking about your FOMO. Also, if it is getting too much FOMO, you can also find other things to focus on a little bit more. Potentially you can do some powerlifting, for example, which is actually really good.
No, it's changed. It doesn't say, for the love of God.
I did like that one.
Yeah, I did too. I thought it was much more direct. But if your happiness depends on you keeping up with everybody else, you're going to spend a lot of time being miserable. The reality is someone will always be leaner. Somebody will always be bigger. Somebody will always be prepping. And somebody will always be winning.
It's only one winner.
Yeah, it's only ever one winner. And chances are you're probably not going to agree anyway. But as if your happiness depends on keeping up with everybody else, then you don't want to go through life feeling miserable because you're constantly trying to keep up with somebody. I mean, at the end of the day, this is your journey. Where it ends in the sport is entirely up to you. The goal isn't to be on the same timeline as everybody else. The goal is to stay on your timeline long enough to actually get to where you're trying to go. And the only person who's in control of that is you.
Very nice. That was a good summarizing speech, I think. I think that's, I have nothing to add.
That's my deep and meaningful one. Yep. So, as I said, FOMO, it exists. How you deal with it, and it can be for multiple different reasons. You could have different things going on in your life which become more important that you focus on, mental health, loss of family members, all that sort of stuff. But, and if you're having FOMO and you're in a team and you're not competing, participate in the group chats. Tell you have experience, you have information to offer. You're still part of a team. And even if you're not actively being coached or you're not actively looking at competing, remember, you have a valuable position in this sport, and that comes from the miles that you've put in. So maybe some people should have FOMO of not being you.
I like it. No, definitely. Yes, stop feeling FOMO, support your teammates, and yeah, live your life.
Yeah, have fun. And maybe you should be the one going, yeah, but I'm not the one eating the chicken, rice, and broccoli 6 meals a day.
I know. Yeah, that's when you start just being like, haha, I get chocolate.
Yeah, it's just constant gifts coming up of different chocolate bars. It'd be like, Rachel, stop playing with the children. It's not nice.
I will get blocked from the group chat, I think. I'll get kicked out.
It's entirely possible. Yeah, it happens. Anyway. All right, well, hopefully we've sort of covered the topic of FOMO enough to give people some things to work on. But as always, if you have enjoyed today's episode, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and follow us on Spotify and YouTube. We did get lots of comments on YouTube and Spotify this week, which was really interesting. So, yeah, thank you for the love and support there. We actually really do appreciate the feedback. But again, yeah, like, subscribe, follow us on Spotify. And Rach and I will see you next week, bright and early for your cardio. And anything there in closing, Ms. Mead?
Just enjoy your day.
Enjoy your day. All right, guys, have a fantastic week, and we will see you next Monday at 5:30 in the morning.